Hi.
Hello there.
Yeah. So, funny backstory, guys. We had like a whole podcast episode. We were like recording it around Thursday, but then I forgot to unmute I forgot to unmute myself on OBS. So I rewatched the clip, and yeah, you just look like you're going crazy just talking to yourself. Oh, there's a notification there. But yeah, you just look like you went crazy. So I'm like, oh no. So we had to reschedule. And here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are, round two. And I just did a sound test this time, and looks good. We look like we're good to go.
Nice.
So, how are you, man?
Well, I'm not doing too bad at all.
That's true. Oh yeah, for those who don't know who this is Avalanche Jared, or Jared from Avalanche Reviews. He reviews games from the 90s, mostly Japanese games like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and a lot of survival horror stuff in general. That's accurate to say, right?
I would say personally, there's a slight chance the internet wouldn't exist without me. That's
whoa, okay, there we go. That's
how I describe it.
Fair enough. Bro has influenced a lot of people. Yeah, if you're a Resident Evil fan, we would know who you are. They would know.
I would hope so. I hope so at the very least. Just you don't have to like it. Just be aware that I exist, and I'll call that a win.
That's same philosophy with me. You know what? Actually, I noticed this about you. When I watch your Resident Evil reviews, you're generally pretty tame with you don't grill certain games as much as I'd expect. Like with Resident Evil 6 and 5, you gave pretty decent reviews for them.
Yeah, I try to be, a little more level-headed. I think the angry reviewer thing, I mean, it has its value. I'll still watch videos from the Angry Video Game Nerd or something like that. But as far as the kind of stuff that I want to make, I don't know. I tend to gravitate towards more level-headed, sort of okay, well, here's the good and here's the bad. And if you think the bad outweighs the good, that's fine. But I'm just listing them out for you. I kind of like that approach.
So it's a bit more non-biased in a sense. Is that the right way to describe it?
Honestly, I do. I have so many strong biases when I go into a video. But what I try to do is make it clear. Okay, well, these are my biases, and you're aware of those. And I'll start listing things that I notice based on those biases. I'm big into graphics and display modes and upscaling. Yeah. So I'm going to be biased towards that information in the video, and if you're aware of that, you can go into it and say, if I make a comment about a game being negative, it's there's some negative thing going on here, I don't like the bilinear filtering, and then where my bias lies. You go, well, Jared's always got a problem with bilinear filtering, so that doesn't bother me, and we can continue with the video.
Fair. I wouldn't understand it because I have no idea how those graphic stuff works, but yeah.
You're better off, trust me.
Fair. I mean, honestly, Resident Evil's generally been pretty. The games look generally good for the times they're in. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah, for sure.
5 still looks really good, actually.
It honestly really does. A lot of people tend to lump it in with that Xbox 360 era sort of brown piss color overlay sort of thing, but I think it makes sense given the setting. They're in Africa. The sun's at its medium point the entire time. It fits the mood of the game.
I actually like the look. I've never it looks weird when it's colorful.
Mm-hmm.
At least it kind of makes up for the daytime setting. Yeah, I found that one weird though.
Honestly, with Resident Evil 5, I tend to feel like it was a really interesting move because obviously we're sort of looking for that nighttime horror movie sort of feel, but Resident Evil 5 was, how do I put this? Spiritually speaking, it's the same idea as the nighttime, where the night is an absence of light, but with Resident Evil 5, there's so much light. The screen is blurring from the amount of light pouring in, and it's creating these harsh shadows. In that first area, that first village,
yeah.
There's little shanty kind of area, and it's creating these harsh shadows. And once you get in between the buildings, it's like it's basically nighttime. There's something about it. I don't know. It just fits the mood right for me. I can't quite explain it.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it makes it look more bleak. Maybe is
Yeah,
that the
there's
right?
just a harsh contrast between the brightest brights you've ever seen, and then those creating the darkest shadows you've ever seen. I don't know. I kind of liked it. It was a fun idea.
Yeah, actually, yeah. In hindsight, or not, is that the right word I'm using? Yeah, in thinking about it now,
Mm,
it does give the game a unique look compared to
yeah.
the previous entries. Were like, yeah, they all more or less look the same. The dark
Hmm.
horror setting, very by the numbers, but yeah. Honestly, yeah. If did you say like the game was kind of inspired by Black Hawk Down, something like that?
It certainly was inspired by that era, for sure. I mean,
That's one of my
it
favorite
definitely
video
had
games
those
ever.
kind of themes. Yeah, and the color palette was very similar
Actually,
too.
yeah,
Even
it
though
did. Yeah,
it's a different location, obviously, but I think it's a similar idea. It's this harsh sun that's so blinding that it's almost instead of being the opposite of darkness, it almost is sort of like darkness, to where like in the darkness you can't see, but if it's so bright you can't see, what's the difference, you know?
that's true. And actually, it makes the dark scenes more meaningful in a sense. Like like when you go into that area, you fight the first Ouroboros monster. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, that actually looked really nice.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but then the plot went like the plot of that game was just okay. That was
Well, that's what happens when you are forced to make a sort of canon from Resident Evil 4, which was from the very beginning meant to be just an absolute different thing, all on its own. And Mikami, like, begrudgingly, is like, fine, I'll tie it into Resident Evil. He just did not want to make an RE game.
yeah, but well, the RE license sold a lot, so
Hmm.
I mean, I will say this though about the game. For one, it's like my first violent video game ever played. I was what? How old was I when I played that? 7, I think, when I played it.
Oh.
And my
Hmm.
brother and I would like fight over who gets to play Chris Redfield or something like that.
Right, right.
And Roger Craig Smith's performance in that game is like still probably one of my favorite video game performances.
Mm.
But yeah, other than that, like it is a actually, and I say yeah, gameplay wise, you also mentioned it's better than RE4. I'd say yeah.
I would say that it's the perfect evolution of all the ideas introduced in RE4,
Yeah.
where a lot of people were upset at it, but I mean, think about it this way, because RE4 got massive amounts of praise in the media and in general, just like on the schoolyard, people loved that game, and for good reason. It was a good game. And when it came time to make a new one, they're like, okay, well, we'll keep the same perspective, we'll keep the same idea, we'll keep the same pacing, we'll keep the same general layout and theme. And if you go each area by each area in RE5, they're almost mirror images of the same areas in RE4, but people seem to hate them in RE5. And I think that goes to show that RE4, the love that people have for it wasn't necessarily because it was such a good game, but because they understood that other people loved it. And when RE5 was sort of at the very beginning with its controversy, people started to look on it poorly. Then you had other people going, "Oh, well now people hate this. I also hate this." And I mean, gameplay wise, they're incredibly similar. And people will often make the comment, "Well, RE4 didn't have like turret sequences. It did. It had that chain gun sequence towards the end." But RE5, I mean, almost the same exact pacing, event for event for event. You start off in a sort of small village where the entire village is coming after you. It's a timed event you have to survive, and then you have the poorly paced area towards the end. In RE5, it's the caves, and RE4, it's the castle. They did a really good job of recreating RE4, but it just goes to show how much popularity in RE4 was derived from like social stigma, for RE5, and then how much RE4 was just, it was literally just like, well, all my friends think it's good. I'm not going to be the one who says it's not good.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Now that I think about it, yeah, RE4 and 5 are a little more similar than I thought they were. I
They're
think.
they're incredibly similar. If you
Yeah.
play them back to back and you pay attention to RE4, not just like it. If you're just playing a video game, it's very easy to sort of let events just fly past your head. But when you're making a video on them, you're trying to like pay attention. It's like, oh, when did this event happen, and what did I do to cause it? If you have that sort of mindset when you play both games back to back, it's crazy how similar they are. Like it's insane. And and I'm not trying to say that people who like RE4 are just like dick riding the entire time, but I am trying to say that people's you were in middle school or elementary school, some people, when RE4 came out. I would say that would be a time when you were most likely to be influenced by the people around you. Maybe RE4, while being a very good game, maybe a lot of the reason people loved it so much is not quite because it was incredible, but because, if 6 people started liking it and then everybody that was around them started being like, well, those are some cool people, I want to be like that. I'm digging myself into a bigger grave. I
yeah. Feel like this is like one of the hottest takes out there.
I mean, I like RE4 a lot, and I do give it a lot of shit because I feel like because everybody loves it so much, it almost deserves more criticism. You have to be a little harsher on it.
Well, it's also because it was a huge turning point for the franchise. I mean, it's not well, people are going to say it's survival horror. It's not.
It certainly is not, yeah.
It's
I
action
would agree
horror.
with you.
But at the same time, I could kind of see why. Like, honestly, if you really think about it, these guys, they're using the same characters. It kind of makes sense story-wise that it would naturally become an action horror franchise. Because, Leon and Chris would be very bad at their jobs if they're still inept after, like, dealing with 3 separate encounters with BOWs.
I think it was a natural progression for because Mikami wanted Resident Evil to be more action oriented from the very beginning. He just wasn't able to achieve that with the tools that were available to him, which was, that old Alone in the Dark style of gameplay. So I think RE4 is where he wanted it to be in the first place, and he was finally able to achieve that, which is good. I'm glad it worked out and it got more people into the series, but a lot of my animosity comes from the fact that would have been one of the last true. That was if we're considering the Resident Evil series as RE's 1, 2, 3, maybe Code Veronica remake 0, like that classic survival horror style. Resident Evil 4 would be the gravestone for that style. We would never see that again.
Yeah. Do you think they'll ever bring back fixed camera angles?
No, it's never going to happen, which sucks. I mean, I want to be the guy to be hopeful about that, because I would benefit so much, but
that's true.
It's not a good business move. That's their reasoning, I would believe.
Also, I think it's just very, I mean, it might be inaccessible for the newer audiences. Like,
you might be 100% right, because there are a lot of people who... Yeah,
I had a hard time. Like, I tried, like, when I play the early games, I'm like, how do I move this? How do I get this there? But yeah, no, I think maybe in the future I could see them going the route of, like, what they did with the Winners DLC. They can add multiple camera angles, because there is a demand. I'm sure there is some demand for
absolutely. I mean, there certainly is, and I've said it a million times, but I would be fine with relegating your more classic survival horror style with the fixed perspective, and maybe, I mean, I would prefer tank controls, but if you can make it work without them, sure, go for it. I would be fine with that being relegated towards like a side series. You have Resident Evil, let's say Revelations turned into the survival horror games, and then the numbered Resident Evil titles would continue forward as like RE4 or RE7 or whatever style they picked.
Yeah, that's what I proposed a long time ago as well. Like, there should be separate series, like, and also that would be good because we'd also get like a consistent flow of titles. Because, dude, like I said last time, these games take forever to release. These take a long time.
And I think it would require less resources, less money, and therefore have a higher margin for making a profit if they were to make like a more fixed camera angle, low tech kind of experience. I think they would stand to profit from that, and they could turn those profits into making more big, flashy, amazing set pieces in first person for the numbered games.
Yeah, like, although I'd say, should they keep the first person angle for like?
I think they're going to. I think they're going to for the next entry. Well, I mean, think about it. Resident Evil. it comes in threes,
That's
right? You
true.
have Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3 were survival horror. Then Resident Evils 4, 5, and 6 were third person over the shoulder. Resident Evil 7 was first person. Then we have Village. 9 will probably be first person, and then they're gonna do something. Who knows what it's gonna be?
I wonder what 9 is gonna look like. It's
It's gonna be first person for sure.
Oh yeah, but I mean like settings and like storyline. What can they do? Like the story of the franchise is in such a weird spot right now.
I mean, they are open to do a lot of fucking shit because, I mean, look at it. They've already opened up the door for werewolves, magnetism powers. You know, like a baby being
China.
brought back to life by combining its fucking body parts together. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, the sky's the limit. They could do anything. Right now, they could just introduce like a religion aspect where it turns out the T virus was like some godly thing bestowed from the heavens, and
Oh no.
it would not be out of place at all. I wouldn't even bat an eye if I saw that. I'd say, well, yeah, I mean,
That
we're
would
moving
be
in that direction.
that would be the first time Resident Evil acknowledges a supernatural in that sense, because it's always been pseudoscience, right? So that
I
would
mean,
be
up until now. I mean, like
yeah.
at first they started as like, okay, the my seed, it's a mold, and let's not get too into it. And I'm like, hey, fair enough. I think that's a good way to do it. And then in RE Village, it's like, well, because of the my seed, this guy can control metal, and you have to get in a mech with a chainsaw hand to fight him. And I'm like, okay,
That's a little bit much. That is
we
a
have
little
jumped
bit.
the shark officially.
That is a little bit too much. But yeah. I mean, although the first game was still a little ridiculous, but it still stayed in the realm of, yeah, this could happen. This is fine. It's fit
I
the
think
theme.
Yeah, I think what was good about RE1 is the ridiculous elements were very low key. It's like it was ridiculous within context. Like there are zombies, they exist in this world, and I can kind of rationalize that because there's this pharmaceutical product that they were experimenting on, and it broke out in a lab. Like that seems believable to me. Whereas like in, let's say, Shadows of Rose, where this mold is able to create a hypothetical dream world inside of itself based on memories because it's sentience, and Rose is able to go into this make-believe world
Yeah, that was.
where she has superpowers, and I'm like, okay, we have gone so far beyond what I can suspend my disbelief for.
Yeah, it's insane, and yeah, I mean, that's why like last call, I advocated they just scrap everything, reboot the series, and kind of just so they can it's a good way because not only can they profit off the older characters, they can bring them back in their 20s, they can bring them back to the Arklay Mountains. They can kind of fix where the storyline kind of went bonkers, and they can carry on something a bit more grounded, as grounded as the franchise could be. Like they don't have to add the fantasy elements of like grandiose, like trying to resurrect someone's baby or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that one. I kind of thought that was the direction they were going with because with the remakes, they were
Right?
altering a lot. People looked different. Events were playing out slightly differently, and I was kind of okay with it because I mean, we have the classic games, and I knew that they were good, so I was like, oh, okay, well, let's another take on them. That sounds like a fun idea. Let's do it. And Capcom is like, okay, that's the direction we're heading in, but then they don't, and they stop, and they go somewhere completely different. I don't get it. I can't understand Capcom. They don't seem to have a direction they're actually going in. It's just wherever the fucking wind's blowing, man.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, it's like we don't really know what's going to happen next to the franchise. I've heard rumors of like it's going to be set in the American Midwest, and it's like Wendigos and Native American lore. That's what I'm. That's what they're going to try to tackle with, which would be.
That would not even surprise me.
Yeah. It's funny. They should do something set in Asia. That would be cool. We have a lot of Europe games. We have a lot of American games. Like
I would love like a classic survival horror style game set in like a big megalopolis like Tokyo. That'd be fucking amazing. I would really
Yeah,
enjoy that.
that would be cool. Yeah, they did have Tokyo, the Wire Ghostwire game. That
Mm.
is that.
Oh, that was like almost like a rapture thing where everybody disappeared. That was kind of a cool idea. There was just people's clothes all over the streets. That was kind of sick.
Oh, haven't played it yet. Have you played? Oh shit! I had a. My bad. Just had an alarm there. Lovely, but have you played that game yet?
I have not, which is weird because I live here and you figure I'd want to.
Yeah, I think it's up your alley.
It's the same thing with the Yakuza series. I live like 20 minutes away from Kabukicho, which is basically where that game was based on. I love that area. It's one of my favorite areas in Tokyo, and for some reason, I just still have not played that game or
Oh,
that series.
you gonna check it out sometime?
Mm. I 100% plan on doing it for sure. I have so little time now that it's fucking
Uh,
killing me.
Oof. Yeah, you're in university now, right? With Japanese.
Well, it's a little more lax than like proper university.
Oh, you're
So
lucky.
it's
You lucky guy.
yeah, it certainly compared to how it could have been. Yeah, we were talking about before this even started. I'm so happy I'm finished with college that I don't know if I could go back in it willingly again, dude.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. The rest of, because the Philippines, we were one of the last to open up, like schools.
Mm.
I know America.
Hmm.
America was like, yeah, okay, we tried this. People didn't like it, so we'll open up.
Some parts were like that. I was lucky enough to be from Florida,
Oh
so
yeah, Florida did
we
not.
locked down for a few months, like maybe 3 months, something like that, if I remember correctly. And then after that, they're like, well, I mean,
Yeah, I think that's why Ron DeSantis is pretty popular now. I think that really did a lot for his
well,
career.
yeah, not only that, and the proof is in the pudding. He was able to make sure the economy stayed strong, and that
Yeah.
while people who contracted COVID, those numbers obviously still stayed relatively high because people were interacting with each other.
Yeah.
COVID deaths were relatively low, and then after the hurricane that hit, he was able to make sure infrastructure got back and running at a really fast pace. So I think it's it's not only that like he defied like these kind of like polarizing ideas, but that he was able to do it and then also get really good, very tangible results while doing it as well.
Yeah. And you know what's actually a bit funny? This is a little off topic, but it will get back on topic soon. You know how
Hmm.
like there are a bunch of files, like there are a bunch of like documents released about Dr. Fauci and how he experimented and stuff. Like it was like these documents that were leaked.
Oh no, I didn't. I was not aware of that. Damn.
Yeah, so I forgot. I don't know the exact details, but all I know is that, yeah, there are documents that are released by people. You know what it felt like? It felt like, you know how in Resident Evil you find out the story by reading a bunch of stuff? That's exactly what it felt like for me. I'm like, this
Oh
feels like,
shit.
it's kind of related because, like, it's medical related, pharmaceuticals and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah,
I like it.
I got like the
I like
same
that a
vibe.
lot.
Yeah. Oh, man, but yeah.
That's one thing I always liked about Resident Evil. Old George Romero zombie movies. He was all about telling these sort of side stories that weren't necessary for the core story to continue, but they were just like it was good world building. Like in Night of the Living Dead, they would have stories that of stuff that was going on in I think it was Carson City, and you didn't need to know that Carson City even existed in the story, but it built the overall world that was being overrun with zombies. I kind of feel like Resident Evil does a great job of that.
Oh, yeah.
You find these journal entries and then, oh, the Keeper's diary. We don't need to know who the Keeper was, and he's not important to the story, but we can see firsthand the plight of someone who's turning into a zombie or something, right? Very cool.
Yeah, I think in general, just world building like that, it just adds more immersion, you know?
Certainly does.
You're the one who's figuring out what's going on. It's not told to you, so that's always
Mhm.
cool. That's always a bonus. That's why I think that's something I like that 7 and 8 brought back more because I think
Mhm.
6 they just really spoon fed you the stories like this what happens. This what
Yeah.
happens.
They definitely did for sure. And while 6 was fun gameplay wise and it had elements that I thought, it was fun. I like the outbreak in Hong Kong with the zombies just flooding into the streets and breaking like restaurant
Was it
big
Hong-
panels of glass.
Was it
Very
Hong
cool.
Kong? I thought it was mainland China.
Was it mainland?
I think so.
That might have been my bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was mainland China, like a fictional place
That
in
makes
mainland
sense.
China. Yeah, that
Right.
was cool. Like, I know 6 is like it's so easy for people to just like crap on that franchise, but I grew up with it, fond memories.
Yeah.
I even had a shirt on a school trip. Like, I think it was a grade 5 school trip. We were in Bangkok, or we were in Chiang Mai, and my friend, he noticed, he's like, "Hey, Cal, like, what's that video game?" I'm like, "Oh, this video game." Like, I was wearing a shirt. It's like, "What's that video game from?" I was like, "Oh, this is from Resident Evil 6." I just explained like which character was which on my shirt. That was fun. Yeah.
People have a lot of problems with RE6, and I think a lot of them are warranted. But I still think it's a pretty okay time. It's a pretty fun time, honestly.
It is like it's not a bad game. This is like this phrase is like a dead horse, but it's not a bad game. It's just not a good RE game.
Yeah, yeah. I think everything since RE4 has been that case.
It's more or less like.
You know.
Although I will say this though, it
I'm
has
sorry
not.
about that siren. Apparently,
It's all right.
Jesus Christ,
Dude, I'm having like notifications and like ringing, like my phone going off. It's all good. But, what was I saying? Wait, losing track.
bad RE games.
Bad RE games. Wait, hold on. Yeah. RE6. During the pandemic, I played through 4. I played through 5. They still aged pretty well for me. 6, not so much. I think the controls were a bit wonkier than usual. I think it just felt. I think the tone it was just more in your face compared to 5 and 4.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
There's
like,
no doubt about
just
that. Yeah.
everything about the game, like the little quick time events you have, it just makes these loud, flashy noises and like the
Yeah.
angles and like it's just like.
Yeah, that like flash and the ba-ching, like that noise is stuck in my head forever.
Yeah. Dude, I think the game, like, even if you fail the quick time events, it just does it for you now. Like, in the PlayStation mode and everything, or in PS4. Yeah, it's like, and I don't know, Ada's campaign, yeah, that was kind of bad.
No, I don't count that as even being. Yeah, I played through half of it and I was like, I saw what I needed to see.
Yeah, honestly, I just get that campaign out of the way just to like get it done. Like, what is the best campaign for you in that game?
Oh, that's so tough. I want to go with Leon because it's the most horror oriented. Those words being in huge quotations, but
horror oriented for RE6.
Yeah, in that context. But it's so badly paced though. I would say as far as pacing goes, probably Jake's campaign is the most solid as far as progression, but I don't enjoy it as much as I liked Chris's campaign.
Chris's campaign, I think it's the best. Story-wise, the best. It's about him, trying to get back on the job despite taking huge losses. That was cool.
Yeah, I like that intro scene too.
Yeah. Roger Craig Smith gave a really good performance. I miss that guy as Chris. I miss him so much. He has to come back in some form. I really hope he does.
I really like the voice actor from Village because he was the same guy who played Carlos in 3 Remake, but it was very hard not to just hear Carlos in that Chris performance.
Yeah, and especially because this RE8 Chris looks like Chris. It was a bit weird. Still no mention of Jill. I feel bad for her. What happened to her? She's literally like the protagonist of the first game alongside Chris, and like no.
But she had a pretty good run though. She's had a few titles under her belt by now.
That's true, but Chris is like.
She had RE's 1, 3. She was in 5, and then in DLC for 5, and then Revelation. I feel like they've been fair enough.
That's true, but she's been sidelined afterwards. Chris, on the other hand, I think Chris is the main character of the franchise now you think about it, right? That was my downside with the Winters thing. Like, I know it brought back the survival horror aspect, but yeah, it ditched the original storyline.
I think not as much as you might think with Shadows of Rose, the DLC. It's moving in that direction for sure, but they didn't quite achieve it. I mean, I will give them props for doing what I asked them to do. They're doing it in such small degrees, though. It's it's hard to explain. it is a slower game. Ammo is a little harder to get your hands
Yeah.
on. Enemies hit a little harder, and I'm like, okay, that's good. I like that. But it's such a short campaign, and there's no real exploration, or you're not really trying to explore the environment, find items, solve puzzles, open up more of the environment to explore. It's none of that stuff. It's very linear, very just move from this area to that area. You're good to go. It doesn't hit the same way.
I guess it's like, I think that's what they're doing with the survival horror fans of the franchise. They're trying just giving them like, all right, here you go, here's a main bit. Then they're catering more to the action guys, or the one the. That's what they did with 5 with Lost in Nightmares. They gave that survival horror campaign, but the rest was action.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's the same idea for sure, which is good and bad at the same time. On one end, you're getting what you want, so it's hard to complain.
That's true.
On the other end, the people who were there from the beginning, who made the series what it is today, are getting the table scraps, and that does feel a little dirty,
Yeah, yeah. That's true. I think the best way they can keep the survival horror aspect, yeah, like the two type of games, approach, one game for Michael Bay action fans, one game for survival horror fans. They don't even have to stick with the same characters for the survival horror games, because they're naturally going to become action oriented, right? Like, maybe the series should be treated more like this is just my opinion, but the series should be treated more as an anthology of sorts. Like,
I think that would be very interesting. Yeah, I could be with you on that.
Because, right, you have the winter storyline. Then with like 7. Like let's say they did this approach for 7. Resident Evil 7 could have been a whole different thing. Maybe a few mentions of Umbrella and bioterrorism attacks, whatever. And then you can have that there, and then just end the storyline there with Ethan. Like, when you look at the end of when you look at the DLC for what's that, End of Zoe, is that what's it called? Yeah.
Yeah.
When you look at the End of Zoe thing, there's nothing really much to say afterwards. Like, yeah, Ethan, everyone's safe and happy. The end. And then RE8, they could have the setting in an eastern village, whatever. But don't drag in the winters. They didn't have to be there. Like, do another character. Maybe.
Yeah, I could feel that. That could work out long term for the series too. So you always had something interesting and new to sort of look forward to in a new game.
Yeah, then it keeps the survival horror angle as well. And then you have the mainline series. You can follow your Chris, your Leon, your Jill, whoever. Then they can go on their dumb, crazy adventures, and I think everyone wins.
Yeah, I would be down for that for sure.
Honestly, yeah. And I also mentioned, I think exploring Raccoon City. I think nuking Raccoon City was the biggest mistake of the franchise, because it's such an interesting place. And
yeah,
it's just gone now.
Well, it's not only that, and I am 100% there with you. I love Raccoon City as a setting. I love contemporary urban style settings for like very fantastical horror sort of situations. It just feels it's easier to immerse myself in that environment because it's an environment I'm familiar with, like it to the core of my brain. So I see the buildings, the streets, and I'm like, okay, this is like a real place as far as I'm concerned. But I think what they did that really screwed them moving forward when they nuked Raccoon City is they upped the stakes too far. And when you up the stakes too far, it's very hard to continue upping them. And you end up with something like RE6, because where do you go from there?
Yeah, 6 was like a Jason Bourne movie or something like that. With the globe hopping and the action scenes, and it was actually, it really felt more like a Hollywood movie than it did. Like, action and horror can still work together. I mean, Aliens, that's a good example. Or what else? What's a good action horror?
I mean, I would say RE2 is probably the perfect combination of the action elements and the horror. Yeah, because if you look at the pacing and stuff, I mean, you've got the G101. You have him like being airdropped onto the city. You've got the threat of the nuke. You have the upping of the ante with this taking place in a major urban center.
but
I,
you have the exploration, you have the survival horror.
mhm. Yeah, you have the more the more isolating elements from RE1 because you're in this precinct
And
and
everyone's dead.
yeah, exactly. You have a few people in there who are alive, but you're not spending very much time with them. So effectively, you feel alone. So yeah, I think RE2 is a perfect example of where you can take action and horror and how far how much of each needs to be present, I guess.
I'd say it's more like survival horror gameplay with action story. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like the tone
Yeah,
is
like action elements,
action
sure.
elements. Yeah. RE3 I think is a more accurate depiction of. I think it is, at least for Resident Evil
Mm.
standards. RE3 is a bit more balanced between action and horror, survival horror,
Mm.
because you have God. I think
You got a dodge move, and you
the
can like
machine
combine
the
ammo and
machine
stuff.
gun also, gosh, that thing's overpowered.
Mm.
But yeah, but then you also had Nemesis to balance it out. I really wish they made him more of a stalker in the newest, in the remake.
So here's the thing.
You don't like stalker enemies?
Yeah, I don't. Well, stalker enemies are fine but if they're unkillable inside of a survival horror game, see, a lot of people tend to think of it in the sense of like, oh, well, that's really good horror because when I'm walking around, I have to constantly be ready for like Nemesis to show up or whatever. Which, if you played, Resident Evil 3 more than twice, you know when and where he's going to show up, and
Yeah.
you can track him relatively successfully, but I it really ruins the sort of survival horror roadmap as far as gameplay goes because not only I'm dealing with a limited inventory and I have to carry around with me ideally at all times enough weapons and ammo not just to get to where I'm going because I have a very limited amount of stuff I can hold, but enough to deal with a potential boss fight every single every 3 areas that I go through.
So
I think
it's
it
like.
messes with
Oh, what are you saying?
it just it with survival horror you tend to want to make sure that you're carrying enough stuff with you that you can deal with zombies or lickers or hunters or whatever, but enough free spaces that you can solve a puzzle when you're going to where you want to get to or pick up a key item or combine two things together. And I think if you're constantly walking around constantly prepared to fight what is essentially a boss or to take enough damage to get by what is essentially a boss, I think it kind of messes with like that survival horror style to a point where like it sort of limits progression.
So it's less scary, just and more annoying, in a sense.
That is exactly my feeling. Although a lot of people tend to, if you're playing Resident Evil very, very casually, in the sense that you're just sort of playing it to get scared, it's a scary idea that Nemesis could show up at any time. But if like you're like me and playing Resident Evil is more about solving puzzles, and those puzzles aren't always just like the little sliding block puzzles or something, but how do I get to where I'm going with the least amount of resources on me so that I can pick up the most amount of resources when I get there, and what's the best route to take and stuff. Those are the kind of puzzles that I think make up a survival horror game. And I think Nemesis's involvement sort of gets in the way of that. Whereas I liked I like Mr. X in RE2 because he was scripted, but he was scripted in a way that would surprise you on a first time playthrough.
God, that actually terrified me the first time.
Yeah, like you walk out of that one room where you use the lighter to turn on the flames in the precinct's like press room, and then he just punches through the wall when you solve the puzzle. That was great. And I do recognize that in Nemesis, he's able to sort of create moments like that like organically throughout the game. I just don't feel like the gain of that is worth the loss of the sort of survival horror gameplay I enjoy so much.
Yeah, yeah. Now you think about it, yeah, that makes sense because, especially because you're trying to solve puzzles, you want to figure out certain ways and routes. It just gets annoying. It's like, okay, let's just get this over with, right?
Yeah, it's like a roadblock that may or may not be there sometimes. Which is fine. Everybody has their preferences as far as gameplay goes, but when I play a survival horror game, I tend to want to engage with the more like strategic stuff, and I'm not you know, like a speed runner or what you would call good at video games. So
Fair. By the way,
stuff like that can get in the way for me.
oh yeah, yeah, I can see that. Cause yeah, you play to just kind yeah explore. Is it in a way?
Hmm.
Survival horror games are kind of like open world games in a sense.
I like to call them incremental exploration games,
Yeah,
where
that's a good
you
word.
have a large area that's available for you to explore, but it's closed off to you in a way that makes it so that you have to explore through it very small portions at a time, like Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo. Massive world, but there's a lot of sort of organic roadblocks in front of you. And in a Metroid game, those roadblocks are solved with upgrades that allow you to engage with the game in different ways, like a double jump or a grappling beam. Whereas in Resident Evil, the roadblocks
Keys and yeah,
are puzzles and stuff.
puzzles.
So
Yeah.
you get through there by solving a puzzle or by figuring out where a key goes or by figuring out how to combine two items and use it somewhere. So I like the idea of like incremental exploration. There's a huge world out you know in these games, but I can only see it 3 rooms at a time, 4 rooms at a time. And every time I open up a new room, I've got to backtrack across what I've already opened up progressively to go back and do something else. I like that stuff.
Yeah, it does, and it does. I like it. Yeah, I like it too. Especially also, although it kind of gets a little annoying when you have no idea where to go from there. Like at times, I'm like, what? I
Yeah,
think,
it's sort of part and parcel with playing a Resident Evil game for sure, is getting to that point.
yeah, like I sometimes I'm just like, okay, I just look up what to do next. I'm like, yeah, all right, it's just, yeah, but
Yeah, there has to be that
balance.
balance.
7, I think, balanced it pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. Seven, I think it was very easy to organically explore RE7's world, and it was a smaller. So it was a pretty big place as far as like a floor map goes, but you only had certain parts of it accessible to you at certain times. So if you were in the main house, that was just all you had to worry about. But if you go over to Lucas's place or the old property or something, right? All of those places are sort of localized, and you don't necessarily have to go back and forth from one to the other. So you're usually pretty sure if you're in this one area, you've got like
Yeah,
9, maybe a maximum of 11 rooms that you have to explore, which
yeah.
really helps make it easier to remember the layout.
Oh yeah, honestly, yeah. I think one of the most satisfying things when I play, right? And now I before like first time playing Resident Evil 7, I'm like, where do I go? What do I do? Now I can just like I know the game like the back of my hand. Like it's like, yeah. Do you have that? Like when you play it so much, you're just like, yep, I know what to do. Do this, this, that.
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of what I enjoy about survival horror games is that I'm able to get to that point, and then you sort of start playing it as a way to mindlessly relax. Like
Actually,
when
yeah,
when I need, yeah, when you need that you put on a video game that you don't necessarily have to think about very much, but one that's satisfying to play.
yeah,
When I get to that point, I boot up RE2. I start playing RE2, and I know exactly where everything is. And if I don't, it's fun. Remember, like, oh, that's right. I get this key here or whatever. I sort of that's the desired end goal for a survival horror game for me is to get to that point.
just to relive, or just yeah, to a point where it's like it's not even scary. It's just more relaxing.
Yeah, yeah. It's the process that I enjoy the most. This is making it sound so weird.
Yeah, I was like, ah, no, it's not weird. Although, I do. There's one thing. When I'm playing RE7, no matter what I do, there's this one section that always creeps me the heck out. And like I would have an infinite ammo shotgun and like the Albert with like the magnums, like infinite ammo, all that stuff. But you know that bit after you defeat Marguerite, you go into the dark area to get the D series arm. Do you remember that? That bit creeps me out so much. I don't know why. It's just
It's really good level design, and it's great lighting, and the
it's very
music and sound design is really good.
and it's very disorienting as well because it's so dark. But I'm like, although I do still have an idea of where to go, but it's just yeah, that bit always creeps me out.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. Do you have those even when you're playing for relaxation? Do you have those moments
Yes,
still?
for sure. Yeah. So the interesting thing for me is why I like zombie media so much is because I've watched like horror media for forever. I like stuff like The Thing or
Love that movie.
Event Horizon. I like a lot of more like psychologically tinged horror. But as a kid, you watch the Friday the 13th stuff, the Jason stuff, and that's good. But there there's something about zombies that just got to me for some reason in some way when I would see a person that was recognizably human but acting in a way that was unrecognizably unhuman.
Uncanny Valley, something like that.
Something about it, there's a dissonance. It's like, okay, I can see that that's a person, but why are they acting animalistically? It's like there's nothing cognitive driving them. There's something about that even as a kid, while I couldn't explain it the way that I can now, I knew that there was something off. It was creepy. In like out of all the horror stuff, that creeped me out the most. And when I play a Resident Evil game, even when I'm looking to relax, I still like the situation that I'm in. I'm running through the streets of Raccoon City. I got to duck in the police station. It's the only place that's safe. Outside is filled with zombies. Inside there are also zombies, but at the very least there were doors in between us. I love that. It creeps me out. The general setup is what gets me on that one.
Yeah, I get that. You know what? Like, that reminds me though, because when you're looking at Resident Evil, the early Resident Evil games, they're not zombie apocalypse games. They're zombie horror.
Yeah, it's like localized
Yeah,
stuff.
I like that stuff because
Hmm.
it's like you're the only one facing it, and no one else knows what you're going through. Something like that. Is that the right way to say it?
And well, yeah, for sure. Because I'll tell you, my reasoning is when it's localized like that, and it's just you going through this, and maybe a handful of other people. It's easier to see that as something that maybe you could really believe would happen. Because once you
Yeah.
start once you start adding a lot of people to that equation, it starts becoming less and less realistic. Like, could zombies really show? There's like 30 people in here. They could, it wouldn't be a problem. But we're coming in after zombies have like run roughshod over the city. They've just marched down the streets. They've killed people, and we're just seeing the aftermath. And we don't have anybody to really talk about that with. And it's something about that isolation makes it feel more real.
Right.
How about this? It is always going to be more scary for you to play a single player game than a multiplayer game because
Yeah.
the presence of someone else is going to kind of ruin that horror atmosphere. I think that also is why we're a little more likely to suspend our disbelief if it's a little more isolating.
Because yeah, once you get the world involved, you get the like world governments involved. It just doesn't feel the same. You know.
Yeah, you have to start rationalizing
Yeah.
more and more, and when you're doing that, it's no longer horror.
There's mystery when it's just like you're the first people to uncover this.
Yep.
Now I think, okay, this will relate back to the topic, but trust me. Have you heard of that story about these U.S. like there's this mythological story like how this U.S. Special Forces group in I think Afghanistan or Iraq, I forgot where, they apparently fought off a giant in Kandahar.
Oh no, I haven't heard that. That sounds dope as hell.
Yeah. It's like a real, like, no, well, I don't know if it's real or not, but it's like an actual. These guys, these Green Berets claim that they fought off, like a Nephilim, like I forgot what that they are. Like they're like giants or something. Like they fought them off with like M4s and all that stuff, and I think that's kind of like what this reminds me of because these are the first guys it's kind of like a Resident Evil scenario if you think about it, right? These guys are alone in the woods. They're part of they're military, Resident Evil or police, and it's just them who's experiencing it. Yeah, there's a few other armed people with them, like they're in a group, but you
Right.
you get that feeling that they're alone and they have to fight against this unexplainable monster. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, you look it up. The Giant of Kandahar. It's a really unique story.
I'll
Now,
type that in right now.
imagine if it became like it went from like like it became demytholized. I don't know if that's the right word. Right.
I do
Yeah,
know
yeah.
what you're
Imagine like
going
yeah.
for though.
Imagine if like then like later a bunch of soldiers encountered them. Then a bunch like the government knows about it. Then it's official. It doesn't feel the same, right? Maybe it's
Yeah,
like
like if a lot of people like corroborated it, it wouldn't feel quite so insane and crazy
yeah.
and out there. Yeah, there's something about having a bunch of people confirm what you're seeing that makes it less scary.
Yeah, because it demystify. Yeah,
There
demystifies
you
it.
go.
Yeah.
That's definitely it.
And yeah, and also this could happen. Maybe stuff like this has happened in real life. You know, it's a big
That's what I love
wide
about horror
world.
media
Yeah,
like that. Yeah, you know, that's
yeah,
that's it. It's the unknown. That's why
yeah,
people like Lovecraft so much. Lovecraft's entire his entire MO was like there's so much out here we don't know, and what if knowing it would be even worse? You know, it's killer stuff.
Oh yeah, Lovecraft gives me like, oh yeah, but I don't want to read Lovecraft because I just don't want to lose my mind. It's like
Lovecraft is really really good,
yeah,
man. Like
cosmic
there's
horror. Yeah,
the
it's
Necronomicon is a collection of a lot of his shorts, and it is just the concept of knowledge that is so just you're not supposed to know this so hard that the knowledge gained will just drive you insane, and it's such a cool idea.
yeah. I that concept has been explored in many mediums, and yeah, because like maybe we're better off not knowing. The ignorance
Yeah.
is bliss.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
But yeah, so they're like, what else? Yeah, and then you hear like that's why I think that's also why folklore is so interesting, right? Because it's basically eyewitness accounts, right? We don't know if it's true. We can't confirm it or not.
Right.
What was like a scary story that happened? Do I have any scary stories? Like me?
You know what I've always enjoyed? That one that Russian creepypasta
Sleep, the
about
Russian
the
sleep.
people where they're like depriving them of sleep with that
Yeah,
like gas or something. That's something like that.
yeah,
That has
Russian sleep
always been a
experiment.
cool.
Yeah. Oh, by the
There
way,
you
there
go.
is a bell ringing. The trash can be taken out, but I'm not gonna take out the trash. I don't have trash, so pardon me for that. But have you heard of Dietlov's Pass? The Dietlov Pass incident.
Yes. Yeah.
That one, and like, yeah, that's why I think that's why so much of this stuff is so fascinating to like humans because it's the unknown bit. Like, what did this? Dietlov's Pass, the Bermuda Triangle. Uh,
I think that one is recently, and I'm sad to say this has actually been relatively explained.
which one?
The so it was like a type of avalanche that's like horizontal, like a snow sheet or something that moved.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's so what happens is it essentially trapped them in snow, and that's why they tried to break out from the inside of their tents. And because it caught them while they were sleeping or something, they suffered hypothermia, and a lot of the people that they had found that had taken their clothes off is that's sort of a common thing that happens when you go through hypothermia, where you feel like your body's actually burning as opposed to freezing. So they took their clothes off, and a lot of the injuries that they found on the bodies, the skulls caved in and stuff, could be explained by the ice sheet moving through like a sort of horizontal avalanche that kind of like mangled them and crushed them up.
oh, that's sad.
Yeah, it's pretty shitty,
Yeah.
but I liked it way better when I didn't watch the YouTube video explaining it. It sounded like a cooler idea.
Yeah, but then it's like, oh, this is tragic. I don't want to think
Yeah,
about it
yeah.
anymore. I'm like, this is sad stuff. What else? Like, but there's still some other stuff that hasn't been explained though. And
Oh, for sure. That's what I love about the world.
Bermuda Triangle, that one's a bit wonky. I think I crossed the Bermuda Triangle once in a cruise ship. It's still here, so there's that. What else? I'm trying to think. What's like? No, I'm remembering one. Yeah, but I don't know why. I've always been fascinated with the concept of like. I think that's probably also why I like Resident Evil so much. I've always been fascinated with the concept of these guys, these highly trained guys, like military police. They encounter this unexplainable, like, monster of some kind, and now they have to survive. I feel like military police horror movies stories they should be more of a thing, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of zombie books that deal with like a cop just working a normal beat, and then a zombie outbreak takes place, and those are always like my favorite stories. It's a very cool idea.
Yeah, I think also maybe it's because like the civilian perspective of it, like you're just a person experiencing an event. You're no one. You're not someone super important, and it adds a sense of realism as well.
Yeah.
Like, you've seen the World War Z? Have you read the World War Z book?
Yes.
Like, I haven't read it, but I've seen the movie. I like the movie. I know a lot of people who read the book do not like the movie.
Yeah, they're two different things for sure. The movie you can like it because there's so few zombie movies out there that you really can't pick or choose.
Yeah, but I did like how they like. I know this kind of goes against what we were saying earlier, but I did like how it kind of gave a sort of realistic response to how the world would react to zombies.
If that's how you feel, you should definitely read the book because it is very, very cool.
Yeah, I read this. I read like the synopsis. It's really cool. Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of really like sort of unconnected stories of different events that took place during that, the World War Z. It was very, very cool. They had a really cool origin for the outbreak and stuff. It was awesome.
yeah, I thought it was unconfirmed in the book, or like organs or something like that. Yeah.
No, the situation that started it was like in mainland China in some very small village. They were, I think it was like people looking for, they were diving for something, and somebody got cut by something, and it was like it's implied to be sort of an ancient virus, but before anybody could research it, the zombie outbreak took place. It was very cool, the origin. It was very low key. There's a lot of parts in the book where or there's a part in the book where one of the first responders, sort of like the National Health Organization or whatever, like that big American bureau of people who deal with infectious diseases and stuff. They showed up on the
CDC?
scene. There, yeah, like CDC, something like that. And one of their top scientists calls a personal friend and says, get your children out of major cities or something like that, and then shit kicks off. It's very cool, man.
Okay, I gotta read it now. Yeah, people have been recommending that book to me. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, it's super good stuff.
I'm not much of a reader, so we'll see.
Yeah, same here. I have dyslexia, so it's I usually listen to audiobooks because I can't read fast enough for things to stay interesting.
Yeah, this is why college is. Oh boy, yeah, lots of reading there. Yeah, but I've always wondered. We talked about this last time. I've always wondered like what I would do in the zombie apocalypse. Yeah, you told me like who said that? Like we've always had a desire to find out. Like man has always had a desire to find out how they would react to the apocalypse or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was the comedian Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, I think
he
Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, like if a man was watching the news and they're like, there's been an outbreak of werewolves, you just collectively throughout the world, just men going, yes.
Honestly, like that's not too far out because I have had countless discussions with my friends of like, what would you do in a zombie apocalypse? Then I changed like, what if you're in this building or you're in this location or this area and you only had this. Oh, so many hype. Like, okay, you're in Japan. It's the good news is you're an island nation in Japan, so you got that covered. Bad news is though, not a lot of guns for civilians. So
That's a fact.
You'd have to figure out like how to deal with that. I mean,
it would make things infinitely more difficult.
Yeah. I feel like America would be fine in a zombie apocalypse. They're armed to the teeth, and yeah.
Yeah, I think what is it? There's like three guns for every person or something like that.
It's crazy. There are more guns than people in America, if I remember.
So I think Americans would probably do fine.
They will. It's like I think. Let's see, who would probably. Yeah, it's really the populations that haven't had. I guess the relatively safe countries would, ironically enough, be the ones who, because they've never dealt with, the ones who don't go to war that often probably would have a harder time.
Yeah.
Because the U.S. come on, they go to war like every couple of years, honestly.
That's a fact.
So, yeah, what would you do in an like let's say hypothetical right now, zombies. What do you do? There's a zombie apocalypse going on. There's a zombie outbreak.
So, I used to have a buddy that I lived with, and me and him were both super into zombie stuff. And he brought out a really good idea that I've never seen anyone touch on before. In South Florida, there's a lot of like apartment complexes in the area that we lived at. And he was really smart. He's like, all we would have to do is go to the second floor, or go to the first floor, the ground floor, take a sledgehammer and break off the first 6 steps on the stairs that lead up to the second floor on both sides of our building. And there would be no way anything could get up there. And then we can rig like a pulley system to get down from a balcony if we needed to go for supplies and stuff. And then what we would do is you go on one side of the building, make a bunch of noise, get a bunch of attention. All the zombies flock to that side. Use the pulley system to get down. You do that when someone needs to come back up. I feel like that guy figured shit out pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I want to stick with that guy. Like,
That's a genius idea. You
smart.
destroy just the first 6 steps on the stairs, and then it's like zombies aren't going to be able to navigate that. Boom, you're good. You're solid.
What if you have those zombies that stack up like they do in World War Z?
Oh, see, that changes the whole dynamic.
I'm assuming you're dealing with like Walking Dead, like George
Yeah,
Romero
that's
movies,
always.
yeah.
Hmm.
And then you add in special infected like in Resident Evil, then that makes things a little harder.
You know what? Honestly, I've always sort of preferred. I would love a Resident Evil game where zombies are the only thing, and then maybe you have like a human experiment thing, like the Tyrant or something like that. I don't get me wrong. The hunters are awesome. The lickers are just some of the coolest things ever. But man, I really just it's the zombies that I find the most scary. The monsters I can't comprehend, like the lickers or the lizard-like hunters. They don't get me in that same way.
I mean, you kind of technically have that with 7 because they minimize the monster variety by so much, but they're not zombies.
Yeah. I found the molded in 7 to actually be kind of creepy the way that the way they moved and the way their face looked. They creeped me out. I kind of liked it.
And they're so slow, like unsettlingly slow. Yeah.
But then once they get up on you, they're able to do like a very fast lunging move, and you can tell it's like they're charging up with everything they've got just to move their body this fast.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, seven. Yeah, I'll admit. Yeah, the molded were creepy, but I do wish there were more of them or more varieties. Like,
I get that.
They could make like the swamp is such an interesting place. You know, I feel like they could have like alligators, snakes, frogs. God, frogs.
I never thought about that, but that's a very good point. They had a lot of raw material they could have worked with there.
Yeah, I mean, well, like Resident Evil. Well, actually, now that I think, other than 8, I don't think any other Resident Evil game has utilized their setting that much for monster variety.
I think 5 did a good job with having the crocodiles.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. 5 of the crocodiles.
That was very creepy. Seeing them just rise up from the being someone who lived in South Florida, seeing the image of like a gator or a crocodile coming up from the surface is like everyone's worst nightmare that lives below Tampa.
Did you like ever have to deal with that kind of stuff when you were in Florida?
Yes.
Oh,
Constantly.
Is that why you had
Absolutely.
like your guns and everything, so you could just boom to like?
Not necessarily for that reason. No, that was for the people mostly.
Oh boy.
Yeah, with see we the property we lived on, we lived in a kind of small place that was like 35 minutes away from Miami, maybe 40 minutes away from Miami. But even in the area that we lived in, we had like a man-made like pond, kind of like a creek kind of thing in the center of this like 3-house property that I lived on. And every once in a while, you just have a baby gator there because the mom would come, bring her kids, and forget one. Yeah, so we would like raise a baby gator in our lake, and it wouldn't be uncommon. For example, we had a canal that ran next to the property. That's where the mom gator would usually come from. And you would see the drag marks from where they drug themselves out of the water and onto the land. And it's like, I mean, imagine you're walking your dogs or something like that. These things are fucking scary, dude.
Yeah.
And if it's a mom and if it's pregnant, it will just come the fuck after you.
Oh shoot. Yeah, I've never had to deal with that with animals as a problem before, so I'm glad I didn't.
Gators are very scary, and people don't understand how fast they are on land. They are incredible. They can outrun you without an issue.
Oh, like
Yeah, like they are very fast.
Yeah, now I now see why Florida is armed to the teeth. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So the thing is, and this is for anyone who may happen to listen to this and might come in contact with a crocodile or gator on land. The general idea is like, oh, I'll outrun it. You won't. It will catch you. Period. The end. You're not going to get 10 steps before it catches up. But if you serpentine, you run in a sort
Zigzag.
of S
Yeah.
maneuver, zigzag. Crocodiles and gators are fast at exploding and heading straight in one direction, but their body isn't for moving on land, for turning. They can't turn very abruptly. So if you serpentine, they'll have to burn a lot of time trying to catch up with where you're going, as opposed to catching directly up to you.
Just a basic good old Resident Evil dodge there. Like,
There you
like
go,
what Chris
exactly.
does, yeah. Although I thought Mythbusters did an episode on that, and they found that crocodiles or alligators won't, like, they don't bother going that far. Or maybe that was like an exception at the time of that episode.
Maybe. I mean, you might be right. Like, there are people who have been just eaten in South Florida. For sure. Like, that is not an uncommon thing. I made a joke, and when I made that video on RE5, where I put a clip of a man saving his dog from an alligator, and the joke was, and it's a true joke, that this wasn't even like the third article I've read about a man saving his dog from an alligator in Florida.
Oh, man, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna turn into like Superman if my dog gets hurt by any animal.
For sure,
I
you
love
gotta.
him too much.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, alligators seem like no joke. I feel like Australia, like, okay, I said this before, like, with all the animals and stuff in Florida, Florida is like the Australia of America, if you think about it.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
You got
No,
deadly
absolutely.
animals. And then bull shark. You have bull sharks in Florida. Ooh. And those guys go fresh and saltwater. And
Yes.
they're aggressive too.
Yeah, that's the story that actually inspired Jaws. Was in New York State, in the like canal systems. There was I think like a tiger shark or something that
Correct
just
me if
swam
I'm
into the
wrong.
canals.
It was a great white, if I remember.
No, because great whites can't go in.
It was like a rare exception where a great white actually went into a canal, or maybe it was like a saltwater canal, something like that. Because it was like it.
Let's see. Let's see. I have to see now. I'm too
I'm
curious.
gonna check right now.
The inspiration. You were right. I think it says great white.
Yeah, it's like
You
the Jersey Creek, something like that. Jersey.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great white. If I
Off Long Island. Wow.
Jersey
that's so
Shore
insane.
at shark attacks of 1916. Yep. It
Oh
was
my
a
God.
Series of shark attacks along the coast of New Jersey, and yeah, 4 people were killed and 1 injured. Yep. Yeah. So it was a great one. I think. Yeah. Identifying the Jersey man eater. Yeah. Looks like a great white to me. Yeah. I used to be
That
so
is such
into
a
sharks.
scary idea.
Yeah,
Oh my God, they're terrifying, dude.
Like, and you'll see people that say, "Oh, sharks aren't deadly," and I'm like, yeah, they're not. But like you don't want to. If you
To a
run
degree.
if you're swimming in the ocean and you just happen to be like, and there's a shark going like near you, you're not gonna be calm. Okay, I'm pretty sure you won't be calm.
Hopefully, human feces is a deterrent for sharks underwater, because I will be shitting myself pretty good if I see a shark around me.
I know pee isn't. If anything, it does the opposite. But
Oh, shit.
Poop. I'll actually check that right now. Actually, let's see. Is poop deterrent? Does poop deter sharks? But no, they would not be deterred by feces. Mammals cannot smell underwater. This is from Quora. This is from Quora, so we don't know how reliable.
You never know, but at the very least, we're pointed in a direction.
Oh, there we go. There's another one. Feces and urine may be attracted. Oh boy.
Oh no! So there's the problem right there.
The trick, if I remember, is to swim slowly away and not panic, which is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, exactly. You're asking a lot there.
Yeah, like, no, because I remember I watched an episode in like Shark Week. It's like, like sharks can smell blood from like an Olympic-sized swimming pool, some of that. So I was in the beach. I cut myself.
Yeah.
And immediately after I'm literally like a couple centimeters from the shore. But the minute I see that cut, I'm like, nope, screw that. I do not have time for that. Swimming in the ocean is beautiful, though. It's such a nice thing to do, especially here in the Philippines. Have you South Florida's known for its beaches as well, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Gorgeous.
some of them look really nice.
So here's how you tell like a visitor to Florida from a Floridian. A visitor to Florida will have like a tan because they've been going to the beach a lot, going to the ocean. A Floridian has been there so long that they don't care anymore, and they stay inside all day and they're pale as hell. Which is it's you wouldn't assume that would be the case.
Yeah, I know, right? I think that's just hot countries in general. People think we like it. I personally don't.
Mhm.
Although
No, not at all.
Although I think it's more of I think it's a natural thing. If you're exposed to so much weather, especially in like one season countries, if you're exposed to one thing so much, you'd want to switch to the opposite naturally.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, winter fashion, so much better than hot fashion.
Yeah, we talked about this
Yeah, we
before.
did,
You can always put on clothes when
Exactly,
it's cold,
yeah.
but when it gets hot.
You can only get naked so much, and even then you'll be hot. Oh man. But yeah. Hopefully one day I'll live in a cold country. Do you plan to live in Japan or?
Yeah, that is the goal, is to stay here long term if we can.
Yeah, it's a very nice place, very orderly.
It's fun here. People are nice to you. The food is amazing, and the culture is very, very interesting. Like
Yeah.
every day, you're learning something new about the way people interact. It's cool.
Yeah, I want to visit sometime.
It's a great place. I recommend everybody visit this place. It is
Yeah.
incredible. People are so welcoming, and the food is so good. I need to really reiterate that the food is so good here.
Yeah, is it okay? What is Japanese food or just Asian food in Asia in America?
In America, it's getting better. You're getting more and more like traditional Japanese food, and by that I mean well-made ramen, Japanese curry rice, stuff like that. It's getting a little better in America, but the problem is you pay a premium in America. Me and my wife just went down to the ramen shop that is maybe 6 minutes from my front door where we live here, and we paid like 600 yen for a bowl of tonkotsu ramen. That's
Wow.
huge, and that's all I needed,
Nice.
which is less than $5 American.
Yeah.
Whereas to get a decent bowl of ramen in Florida, where you can expect to find good ramen, $15 maybe, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it is here as well. Cheap.
You sort of have to pay for somebody doing something that's not as common in your country. Whereas, in Japan, because you can get a hold of the ingredients for ramen so easily and everybody knows how to make it, you can charge 600 yen for a bowl of ramen and it be expected to be incredible.
Yeah, and the vending machine, ramen. I know, also it's there's many types of ways you can get ramen, and there's vending machines for it too, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Even those are good from what I hear. Correct?
And they're not as bad as you would assume vending machine food would be, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, vending machines you associate them with what snack bars, chocolate.
Exactly.
I did have there was a nice Dippin' Dots vending machine I had. It was I ate in America.
Oh damn, man, I haven't had Dippin' Dots in forever.
They don't have that there?
Not that I've seen.
I feel like it would be popular there. In Japan.
Then maybe that's a good business venture for me.
There you go. But I know there was one in Singapore when I was living there, and there's one in the Philippines here. Yeah, Dippin' Dots are nice, but yeah, back to ramen. Do you know Ippudo Ramen? That restaurant?
I don't
It's
think I do, no.
I think it's Michelin star. Yeah, Ippudo. That's the restaurant's name or something like that. Let me look it up. Ippudo. Yeah, Ippudo Ramen. Yep, it's Michelin star. I think. Wait,
I don't think I've ever had a Michelin star bowl of ramen before, but I would fucking love to.
Yeah, it's really good. Hold on, Ippudo. There we go. I'm trying to find where is it? There you go. Awards. Yep. Won 3 awards. TripAdvisor. Oh, yeah. There we go. Michelin Ippudo, New York has been listed for 6 consecutive years. So I didn't get the one that's Michelin star, but it's the same. Oh wait, wait, Singapore. Nope, no, I didn't get the Michelin star one. Anyways, I would eat that every time I'd travel because Changi Airport. If you've been to Singapore, Changi Airport it has the best airport in the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the world. It's so, like, dude, the American airports, like, well, American airports, they're more generic. They're just, here's a few restaurants, you're here to travel. But Singapore, like, the airport in Singapore, it's something else, man. It's like a mall. I'd say
That's
it's like
cool.
it's like a high-class mall. Like, look up some images of Changi Airport. Like, then there's, like, the Jewel, which is right in the middle of it. It's crazy. So what I would do every time I'd have a flight, I'd order some ramen and takoyaki. That's like the best meal possible. That's just me.
Oh, wow. Holy, this place looks
You see
insane.
It's
like a biodome.
Yeah. I'm assuming, are you looking at the one with the big waterfall in the middle?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's called Changi Jewel. It connects the terminals together, so
Oh,
it's more
yeah,
of like
I see
a
that.
mall. Yeah, it's like I'd say the best way to describe it is like a mall. Look up the Changi Airport like terminals, like Terminal 2. That's the one I go to a lot, and it's like it's like a high class mall. It's carpeted, so it's not as loud.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, right. See, then you compare that to American malls or American airports. Like
Yeah.
American airports, they just do one thing. Yeah, just buy food, plane. Done.
Damn, this place looks fancy.
It does. Yeah, you should go see Singapore. Although Singapore and Japan are very similar in the sense they're they're very advanced in Asia. And although it's like, yeah, people say Singapore is like the Dubai of Southeast Asia.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very nice. But yeah, I kind of miss Singapore. Well, anyways, I kind of have to go now for my, yeah, I think I gotta work on something. Turns out I gotta do it soon. So yeah.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
got
no
any,
problem, man.
You got any other ending remarks? You know.
Play survival horror games and visit Japan.
There we go, and stay away from alligators.
Stay away from alligators. Try to serpentine.
Yeah, try serpentine. All right, thank you so much, Avalanche. Jared, I call you Avalanche. I've been calling you Jared this whole time. Thank you so
No,
much,
that'll be
Jared.
fine.
Yeah, everyone, his social medias, his social. I'm gonna assume you're gonna want me to shout you out because that's what I do. That's what I do for my
Sure,
guests.
yeah.
Yeah. His
That
social
sounds good.
media accounts are all on the screen. So, yeah, there you go. Thank you, Jared, for coming. This was lovely.
Thanks for having me, man.
Anytime, man.